So it's safe to say that nearly everyone is incredibly hyped for the Shotaro Tron bike that's going to be releasing into Grand Theft Auto Online soon. The rumor is that it's going to be coming out in just about 6 days. But what a lot of people don't know is how this bike is going to perform. Now, I have briefly tested the Shotaro bike against some of the other vehicles in the game, like the Akuma, the Bati, the Hakuchou Drag. But what I'm going to be doing today is really getting down into the nitty-gritty details regarding the Drag versus the new Shotaro. Because when these vehicles release, they are going to be the top two super bikes in the game. But there's small little details here that you need to know between them that, might alter your decision on which one you go for, and could ultimately impact if you do save your money. Because there will be some people that will only buy this bike for the performance and will ignore the fact that it has like the glowing lights, is based off of Tron, and that's why I want to make this video today. Because if that's the case, you might be able to get away without buying this vehicle, and you could be able to save your money. So the reason I was prompted to do this was because of a video that Yan2295 released the other day. I'll leave a link to that in the description, and I'm also going to show you guys right now. He essentially did a test between the Drag, and he also tested the Shotaro. Now basically, he did a simple and quick drag test where he determined how fast the vehicles ultimately got and how long it took them to get to the location. So the Shotaro came in with 15.11 seconds to reach whatever distance he was going. The Drag, 15.10 seconds, so just 0.01 seconds faster. And then you can see the difference in speed there, 190 kilometers an hour for the Shotaro versus 197 for the Hakuchou Drag. So what we can tell there is, in a straight line drag test, it does look as if the Hakuchou Drag is better and faster than the Shotaro. Now, there's one thing here that won't be changed no matter what, and that is the top speed. Yes, the Hakuchou Drag has a better top speed than the Shotaro, but I wanted to test that for myself and see what other things we could find out. Because as good as Yan's video was, there were a lot of other elements that aren't tested, and I'm going to be showing that off in this video today. Now, before we get started, I just want to say that these are once again my personal tests. I'm no professional racer by any means, and also keep in mind this vehicle is not available in Grand Theft Auto Online, so I'm having to do these tests in single player where we don't have access to multiplayer laps and tracks and all sorts of good stuff, but it should give you a better idea on both of these bikes. So his video is going to be in kilometers per hour, mine's going to be in miles per hour. I live in America, that's what we go by. Pretty sure we're the only country who does that, but we're going with it. And just doing a simple drag test, my distance was a little bit farther just to allow for a greater margin of error. I was able to reach 121 miles an hour with the Shotaro. Now, I wasn't leaning back, I wasn't leaning forward, which we'll actually do some tests in a little bit to show you guys if there's a difference between that. And my top speed here was 121 miles per hour. So now what I wanted to do is do another test with the Shotaro leaning backwards to see if that actually increased our speed. We know with the Drag, if you lean forward, you get a speed boost. So I wanted to test all the different elements right here. So leaning back on the Shotaro, I noticed that I maybe got a 1 mile per hour speed boost. So yes, it did actually get me to a faster speed. I was able to reach 122 miles per hour as compared to 121 miles per hour. So I thought that was very interesting. Those results right there, pretty cool. And then on a second run, I was actually able to reach 123 miles an hour, so about 2 miles per hour quicker by able to be leaning backwards. Now, we know leaning backwards doesn't really work in a real racing scenario, but you guys get the idea here that in straightaways, yes, it will make your bike slightly faster. Now, I also wanted to test the effects of leaning forward. This one seemed like it would help out the most. It kind of makes sense with the aerodynamics of the bike. And I actually noticed that it kind of had the same effect. I was able to get about 1 mile per hour faster. Now, that might be within the margin of error in terms of the simple test that I was doing, but I did notice that it got me just slightly faster speed. And on the second run as well, I was able to reach speeds of 123 miles an hour. So I had a speed increase leaning backwards and by leaning forwards. So I'm not exactly sure what that means, if you could do both, if it's going to have an impact for both. But my speeds were able to get quicker by leaning forward and leaning backwards on this bike. Now what we need to do is test out the Hakuchou Drag. And we're going to start by not leaning forward or backwards here. We're just going to hit the gas and go. And we notice that the Hakuchou Drag definitely has a higher top speed. Without wheeling or doing anything like that, we were able to eclipse 124 miles per hour, which is faster than the Shotaro leaning forward and backwards. So that does confirm that Yan's test is correct, that the Hakuchou Drag does have a higher top speed than the Shotaro. But what about leaning forward? We already know that leaning back on the Hakuchou Drag doesn't really help. So does leaning forward actually get us a higher top speed? And it does. I was able to reach 126 miles per hour with the Hakuchou Drag, which is pretty fast by leaning forward. And that's pretty cool because when you think about it, that's going to be getting you about 2 to 3 to 4 miles per hour quicker than the Shotaro. Now, I know it doesn't help, but I also wanted to test what happens if you lean back on the Hakuchou Drag, and the results were pretty telling in that it actually kind of slows you down here. I got a slower top speed than any of the times I've ever gotten. I got 122 miles per hour, which is slower than just not doing anything at all, and is certainly slower than leaning forward. So if this wasn't obvious enough, don't lean back on the Hakuchou Drag. It's not going to get you a faster top speed. So basically what this confirms right here is that yes, the Hakuchou Drag is faster and has a faster top speed than the Shotaro, but will that make it better overall than the Shotaro? I think the Shotaro is still going to have a slight edge here, and one of those big edges that the Shotaro has is acceleration. So one of the differences that you've probably seen in these tests is that the Shotaro, the wheels don't spin on the bike. It takes off immediately, whereas on the Hakuchou Drag, you have that period where you have to, get the wheels going, and its acceleration is not instantaneous. And in a real life racing scenario where you're braking, you're stopping, sometimes you might crash, sometimes you might have to come to a complete stop. That's where the Shotaro is really going to have a huge advantage. I think in its acceleration and handling, it absolutely crushes the Hakuchou Drag. And that's something that can't be tested until we really get this bike on like an actual course. We get it in actual Grand Theft Auto Online races. And unfortunately, right now, there's really no way to do that because it hasn't been released into the game. So top speed goes to the Hakuchou Drag. Acceleration and handling looks to be going to the Shotaro. The last thing I wanted to test here is braking. Now, braking is kind of hard to test, and this is the one that's probably the most ambiguous because you can't really like put your finger on one thing and say this has better braking. So what I tried to do was stop at the exact same point while reaching the highest top speed, or at least a very high top speed, and then just hold down the handbrake and see how far it took to brake. So I tried to make it as simple as I could here. I know it's a little barbaric, this test, but you guys should get the idea. And what I noticed here is that the Drag has much better braking than the Shotaro. So you can kind of see the test I'm doing right now. The Drag really does stop instantaneously and is super quick to just instantly put on the brakes, which again is why I think it's still going to be really great in racing situations. And the Shotaro has great brakes as well, but it isn't as quick as the Drag. You can see it does have a little bit of a skid to it, and it does take a little bit longer in order to get those brakes working and running. So that's one thing I noticed. Braking looks to be an advantage in the Hakuchou Drag here. So now what I want to do is talk about the pros and the cons of each vehicle just based off of price and performance. So if we look at the Hakuchou Drag, we know that it's going to be cheaper than the Shotaro. The Drag is only $1 million, where the Shotaro is $2.375 million. So that is a huge difference right there in $1.375 million difference. We also know that the Drag has better braking, but if we move over to the Shotaro, we can tell that it has better acceleration and what looks to be much better handling, as well as if we look at the aesthetics of the bike. Obviously, it's based off of Tron and is going to have some very unique features to it. So let's get to the bottom line here. Is the Shotaro light years ahead, no pun intended, ahead of the best bike in the game right now, the Hakuchou Drag? No, it is not. Is it likely to be better in racing scenarios for many of the things that I mentioned? Yes, it's probably going to be better because of the handling and the acceleration, but is it going to be light years ahead where you're going to have to absolutely buy this bike? I'm starting to think you won't need to. Now, will races become much easier if you own this bike? The Shotaro probably, I think it's going to be one of the best racing bikes in the game, but right now it's very, very, very similar to the Hakuchou Drag. Now, the reason I'm making this video is because of the price of the vehicle. A lot of people are stressing out about this, and a lot of people are wondering, do I really need to buy this bike? And if you already have the Hakuchou Drag or the Batsi or the Akuma, it's not really a necessity. Like I said, would it help you out? Absolutely, but it isn't going to be 100% necessary. The rumor going on with this bike right now is that it's like faster than a Hydra and could beat any vehicle in the game, and that's not necessarily the case. So to give you guys a little bit of a warning here that yeah, you could save your money here, and you don't really have to buy the Shotaro bike in order to be successful in races. Now, the price of this vehicle is likely justified by a combination of its performance and also its cosmetics. Obviously, it's based off of Tron, a very popular movie. It has glowing lights on there, something we've never seen before. It's one of the craziest, sportiest looking bikes in the game. So that's where a lot of the price is going to come from here, and I think that that is where it's justified almost equally as much as the performance you're going to be getting out of the bike itself here. So anyways, I hope this video was helpful for you, gave you some better insight on the performance of the Drag and its comparison to the unreleased Shotaro that's going to be coming out into the game very soon. And like I said, hopefully this gave you a better idea on if you need to buy it, if you want to save your money, and basically all the opinions and information we know so far. But really, that's all the information I have for you guys in this video today. If you did go on to enjoy, a like rating would of course be awesome. And also subscribe to my YouTube channel if you are new or you like daily GTA 5 videos like this. With all the way, guys, like I said, thanks so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you guys in the next video.